It all begins with a story about a quiet neighborhood, a friendly woman, and a stranger who was much closer than anyone could imagine. A woman named Emily lived alone in a small house on the edge of town. She had recently divorced and was trying to start a new life, finding comfort in routine. Every morning she brewed coffee, watered her plants, and left for work by 8. Her evenings were quiet, filled with books and the soft hum of her TV. One morning she noticed something strange. Her back door was slightly open. She brushed it off, thinking maybe she forgot to lock it. But over the next few days she started feeling uneasy. Small things were moving, her keys weren't where she left them, a glass had been used, her window blinds were tilted differently. Emily told herself it was just her imagination, stress perhaps, but one night while watching TV, she heard the faint sound of footsteps from above her attic. She froze. She didn't have any pets and no one else had a key. The sound stopped. Then came the slow, dragging noise of something being moved. Her heart pounded as she picked up her phone and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house but found nothing unusual. One of the officers climbed into the attic and stayed there longer than she expected. When he came down, his face was pale. He told Emily not to go up there and asked her to step outside. Few minutes later, another officer emerged carrying a small duffel bag filled with clothes, food wrappers, and an old photograph. Someone had been living in her attic for weeks, maybe months. The person had made a nest in the corner, hidden behind insulation, quietly watching her life unfold below. The police later found out it was a drifter who used to live a few streets away. He had broken into her house one night when she was out, and since then, he had been secretly living above her, only coming down when she left for work. Emily moved out the very next day and never returned. She said she still wakes up sometimes thinking she hears the floor creak above her. The thought of someone living unseen just feet away is something she says she will never forget. Our next story takes us to a small rural town where a man discovered something terrifying hidden in his own backyard. Michael was a mechanic who lived in an old farmhouse with his wife and 2 kids. The property had been in his family for generations. It was quiet, peaceful, and surrounded by thick woods, but peace doesn't last forever. One summer evening, his dog wouldn't stop barking near the tree line. Michael went out with a flashlight, expecting to find a raccoon, but the dog stood rigid, staring at a patch of ground near the shed. When he got closer, he saw that the soil looked disturbed, as if someone had been digging. He thought maybe one of his kids had been playing there, but when he looked closer, he saw something sticking out of the dirt. It was a small piece of cloth, old and stained. When he pulled it, he found something worse, a fragment of bone. Michael stumbled back, horrified. He called the sheriff, who brought a forensic team the next morning. They began excavating the area and unearthed several shallow graves. Each contained small bones wrapped in deteriorating blankets. The authorities discovered that decades earlier, long before Michael was born, a woman had run an unlicensed orphanage on the property. She was known for taking in unwanted children from nearby towns, but they mysteriously vanished one by one. When neighbors asked questions, she claimed the children had been adopted, but no one ever saw them again. When investigators searched through old county records, they found her name and a faded photograph of her standing in front of the farmhouse holding a child who looked terrified. The case was closed long ago due to lack of evidence. Michael and his family couldn't bear to stay. Even after moving away, he often dreamed about the sound of small footsteps outside his bedroom window. Some say the woman's ghost still wanders those woods, searching for the children she lost, or the ones she buried. Our third and final story is about an apartment, a strange neighbor, and a disappearance that still haunts an entire building. Samantha was a college student living in a small apartment complex in Chicago. The building was old with creaky floors and thin walls, but rent was cheap and the location was perfect. Her next-door neighbor was an older man named Mr. Lowell. He was polite, quiet, and always carried a faint smell of cleaning chemicals. At first, Samantha thought he was harmless. He would greet her in the hallway, ask how school was going, and sometimes offer to help carry her groceries. But soon, she began noticing odd things. Late at night, she could hear muffled thumping from his apartment, like heavy furniture being moved. One evening, while taking out the trash, she saw him in the basement laundry room. He was scrubbing something large covered with a tarp. When she walked by, he startled and said he spilled paint. She smiled nervously and left quickly. A few weeks later, Samantha's friend, who lived on the same floor, suddenly disappeared. Her name was Alyssa. One day she was there, the next. Her apartment was empty. No one saw her move out. The landlord said she had terminated her lease, but her family claimed they hadn't heard from her. Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then one night, she woke to the sound of faint tapping coming from the vent above her bed. When she got closer, she realized it wasn't just noise. It was whispering, a woman's voice, soft, trembling, saying, "Help me." Panicking, Samantha called the police. They arrived and questioned Mr. Lowell, who appeared calm but nervous. He let them search his apartment. At first, everything seemed normal: spotless floors, organized furniture, faint smell of bleach. But then, one of the officers noticed something strange. The living room rug had been cut and stitched back together. When they lifted it, they found a metal hatch. It led to a crawl space between floors. Inside, they found the missing girl barely alive. She had been kept there for days. Mr. Lowell had built the space himself, using tools he kept from his former job as a construction worker. No one in the building had ever known what he was doing behind those walls. After his arrest, police discovered evidence of other victims dating back years. He had been luring women in, trapping them, and moving from one building to another. He used false names and left no trace. Samantha moved out immediately, but the nightmares never stopped. Sometimes she says she can still hear that faint tapping sound whenever she's alone in a quiet room. These stories might seem too dark to be true, but every single one of them happened. Each is documented in police reports and eyewitness accounts. The real terror lies not in ghosts or monsters, but in the people who walk among us, the ones who hide their darkness behind polite smiles and friendly faces. But the world has a strange way of revealing its horrors. Evil doesn't stay buried forever. It lingers, waiting for someone to notice. Let's go deeper into the reality of what makes these stories truly disturbing. In Emily's story, the fear comes from the invasion of personal space, the idea that your home, the place where you should feel safest, can become your own prison without you knowing. The drifter didn't need supernatural powers. He simply needed opportunity, and that's the scariest part: how easily someone can slip into your life unnoticed. Psychologists call this silent intrusion. Cases like Emily's have happened worldwide, from people living in attics to crawl spaces, sometimes for months. Imagine going about your day, completely unaware that someone is just above you, listening to every move you make. That kind of trauma doesn't fade. It rewires how you see your world. Then there's Michael's story, the buried truth beneath a family home. It's not just a story about horror, but about history and how darkness can be passed down through generations. The ground beneath his feet held secrets no one wanted to face. That's the real nightmare, realizing that evil can rest quietly underfoot for decades, waiting to be uncovered. Forensic teams often say that the earth remembers everything. Every bone, every trace, every secret eventually comes to light. And in some cases, the past refuses to stay buried. There were reports from nearby residents who claimed to hear children's laughter coming from those woods long after the site was cleared. And finally, Samantha's story, a reminder that true monsters don't live under your bed. They live next door, they smile, they blend in. Criminal psychologists have long studied people like Mr. Lowell: meticulous, intelligent, emotionally cold. They hide in plain sight, and their control gives them power. What's terrifying is how ordinary they seem. It's the ordinariness that hides their cruelty. For Samantha, the fear wasn't only from being watched or hearing whispers. It was from realizing how close danger had been all along. The wall separating her from evil was just a few inches thick. When you think about it, each of these stories connects in a haunting way. A home invaded, a buried secret, a hidden neighbor. All of them share one thing: the illusion of safety. We convince ourselves we're safe behind locked doors. We tell ourselves bad things happen to other people somewhere else. But true horror doesn't always knock. Sometimes it just waits quietly, patiently until you let your guard down. There's something deeply human about these fears. We fear what we cannot see. We fear the idea that the world we trust can turn against us. The attic, the ground, the wall, all ordinary things that became gateways to nightmares. Even now, people continue to report similar cases. Hidden tenants, lost graves, neighbors with dark secrets. The headlines appear for a week, then vanish. But for the victims, the fear never leaves. Emily still sleeps with her lights on. Michael can't go near the woods behind his new house, and Samantha refuses to live in an apartment ever again. Every true scary story reminds us that evil doesn't need permission to enter our lives. It can come through a door left unlocked, a piece of land inherited, or the apartment next to yours. When you turn off this video tonight and the silence sets in, listen closely. You might hear a faint creak above you. Or maybe the floor settling beneath your bed. Just remember someone somewhere once thought they were safe too. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more true horror content every week. Until next time, sleep well if you can.